Hello, hello. I'm going to do a quick demonstration in Audition of editing a snippet of audio. This is going to be a little quicker than my previous Audition tutorial. So let me just do a quicker one here, okay? I'm going to share screens first of all. You want to open up Audition, and where you pull up your audio is right over here. So you look for it, you open file, you bring it in. You want to be in the multi-track section. If you go to waveform, this is kind of a place to do some specialized audio work. You're going to be best off going to multi-track because, as you can see, it has multiple tracks. You can put your voice here. If you have any natural sound or ambi, you can put it in one of these other tracks. If you have a soundbite, you can put it in track 3. So if you have some room tone, you can put it in track 4. So it gives you some wiggle room. But in this case, to keep it simple, I'm just going to edit this quick narration, the tracking that I did for our KPFK show. This is show number 2. So you can see, I'll play a second of it. There's a flub in one part. So I need to cut out that flub, okay? So it starts something like this.
This is the Cal State LA Community News Hour on KPFK 90.7 FM. We're covering the news and issues.
So normally you'd want to cut this extra pause, right? And to do that, you select the razor blade. This is the select tool. That's what you're going to use most of the time. This is the razor blade tool. So look on your upper left. I'm kind of trying to do circles around it. This is the normal select tool, which you're going to use for most of the time. And this is the razor blade. To cut audio, we're using the razor blade, okay? And I can put my cut right about there. And then I go back to the select tool. I can select and bam, I can delete and then move my whole thing over. Now, in this case, I'm actually going to keep, I'm doing Control Z, Command Z, because I'm going to keep that little bit of audio in case when Professor Brown is doing the post-production editing, if she needs a little bit of room tone for my room, even though I don't hear anything, if there's a little bit of white noise, she can use that room tone. So we're just going to keep it just in case, okay? But I just wanted to show you how to cut audio. So here you have your audio, and as you can see, it's pretty stretched out right now. If you're trying to consolidate it and see it quickly, you can use the zoom and the zoom out tools at the lower right, okay? So if you're trying to stretch it out to see the waveforms better, then you can zoom in and it'll make it taller. It'll make the wave longer up in terms of vertically. If you are trying, and this is going to help you when you're trying to do very careful select cuts, okay? If you're trying to adjust the audio, the volume level, and say there's a peak here. This is not really a peak, but if it were a peak, you know, I can basically click a few dots on the volume tab and and I can lower the volume here in this one part if I need to, okay? If I want to get it like really special, really a lot lower in that one little peak, then I could do it this way. Okay, so that's how you adjust your volume, your volume. But I'm going to actually undo that because it's actually not bad. And I'm going to show you how to zoom in or zoom out the other way horizontally, because right now this is pretty long. I want to get to the end really quickly because the end is where the flub is. Okay. I want to cut out that flub, right? So I'm going to go to zoom out. See, so you keep clicking it and I'll get to the end a lot quicker, okay? I'm going to zoom out a little more. There we are. See, we're at the end very quickly. So now I can drag my blue arrow here, drag it to where I want it. I think this is the flub. Let's listen. If this is the flub, then this is what I want to cut, and this is what I want to add in. Now here, you know, we may want to stretch it out a little bit because I just actually can't see it that well. I want to be able to see the waveform a little better, so I'm going to stretch it out. So my guess is that this is the bad, right here is the bad audio, or maybe these two are the bad audio, and this is the good audio. But let's hear and listen for that flub so we know what to cut out.
But after the break, we'll hear more from my class's Sideline series. You've probably heard the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover." You'll hear one student's story about how being judged by his appearance impacted his work in class.
Okay, that's actually the good one, okay? The flub is somewhere in here. So let's listen. And sometimes we like this beginning part better than this beginning part. So we keep this and we just cut out the very end. So let's just check to see where the good audio is.
But after the break, we'll hear more from my class's Sideline series. You've probably heard the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover." You'll hear one student's story about how being judged by his experience
instead of appearance. There's the flub, okay? So now I know it was this segment right here. And if I'm worried about cutting too much or cutting too little, I can always zoom in and stretch it out a little bit, right? We know it's this one right here. So I'm going to take my razor blade tool. Remember, you want it on the select tool for most of the time. But right now I want my razor blade. So I got my razor blade and I'm ready to make my 2 cuts, okay? So here we are, the 2 cuts. Go back to the select tool so we don't accidentally cut something else out, and bam, okay? Now, I think I have a repeat here of what's here. So some of this I'm also gonna have to cut out because I think I liked this version a little better. So we'll keep this version and we'll delete the beginning of this one. But I need to hear from that. Let's see where this ended.
"Don't judge a book by its cover."
Wait a minute. Let me make sure I didn't cut too much out of there.
You've probably heard the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover."
Yeah, that's fine.
But after the break, we'll hear more from my class's Sideline series. You've probably heard the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover." You'll hear one student's story about how being judged.
So that's where it is. We can delete this. And you know what? Just in case we want to save it, in case we decide this is actually better, I'm going to put it down here. We don't want to lose track of it. But if you move audio here, what's going to happen is you're going to hear double. And it's really annoying. So don't forget to put the mute button on, okay, when you're listening back. And I recommend doing almost everything with your over-ear headphones on. Okay, right now I'm not doing any like really deep audio editing. I'm just doing simple audio editing. So I have my computer speakers on. But normally when I'm recording or when I'm doing some fine tuning, I'm wearing these. And internal mics don't work very well. So see, I'm using my microphone. That's what I recommend, use an external microphone. All right, so let's go back and push this up and see how it sounds. See if the levels are similar and if it sounds cohesive, or if we need to maybe bring this back and just use this other one. Okay, so let's listen to it.
But after the break, we'll hear more from my class's Sideline series. You've probably heard the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover." You'll hear one student's story about how being judged by his appearance impacted his work in class.
I actually think that works. I wanted to show you an example of how to adjust audio when you're not at that, that range of about 12. Remember, the way to see that is you look at your audio and look at the fluorescent green bars. There's one on top right next to your multi-track, and there's one at the bottom. And if it's near that 12 mark, you're doing pretty good, okay? But for the most part, it stays. Obviously, your voice fluctuates, and that's a good thing. It means that you're not monotone. But you also want to try to stay close to the 12. And so if you see areas where the volume is just peaking, then you can go ahead and adjust it. So that's what I've done here, and I wanted to show you. You see that? And so what I did was I adjusted it. I think I adjusted it too much, but let's go ahead and listen.
Express in life. My class, race.
Yeah, it's too quiet. Okay, that part is a little too quiet. So I'm just going to bump it up a little bit, and I'll show you how I did that in a minute. Let's listen again.
My class, Race, Gender, and Class in American Journalism, produced this.
Okay, so that's a lot better. And that's what we want to do also probably in a few more areas. Okay, so we'll do that over here. See how it's getting into the red there? Okay, that's too high. That's peaking right here. Okay, So what we're going to do is, when you're doing this, sometimes it's easier to do this when you zoom in a little bit so you can see your WAV file easier. So basically you click on the volume bar, which is that yellow line, and that gives you a blue dot. You click on the volume line again, and you click on it again. So this way you're actually able to adjust and create these little divots, okay, in the volume. So let's see if that did the trick or if we want to go a little bit lower on the volume.
Let's start with bias in youth sports.
Actually, that sounded pretty good, but we could go a little bit lower perhaps. Let's try it one more time. And this time I'm going to pay attention to the levels.
Let's start with bias in youth sports.
Yeah, that's just fine. Okay. So I guess every time I see a peak, just check it and make sure it's not too loud. So we'll check here. That's going a little bit into the red. So this is just going to save a little bit of time in post-production. This is something that Professor Brown would normally adjust anyway because she's taking care of post-production right now. But this will save her a little bit of time, perhaps.
Along with the full sideline series.
Okay, so we can go down a little bit, but you get the idea of how to make this work.
Full sideline series.
Just a tiny bit more, okay? I think that should do it. So let's check it out again.
Full sideline series at Golden.
Yeah, I think that'll work. So once you're done with this, you're going to want to export the entire audio. Let me show you how to do that. I'm not going to do mine right now because I want to fix these few other little peaks, but before you export, you want to make sure you've selected all of your audio in the first place, right? And so what you want to do is zoom out a little bit. Zoom out. And if this was some other audio that you brought in, maybe this was a soundbite, maybe you had it down here. Again, you find the right spot for it and you put it there. If you put it up against it, it's going to overlap a little bit. And in this case, we don't want that. If we wanted to do a crossfade or something, we can always add that right here. And that's going to be in one of the more advanced tools. Or sometimes you can just manually do it. So say you feel like, this clip is starting out too low and you want it to be a little bit higher to match this, or you want to make this one a little lower to match this, just to make it sound a little better. Then what you can do is lower the volume on this, increase the volume on this, and you're good to go. Okay, I'm going to undo that because I think it's just fine the way it is. Make sure your audio is all bumped up against each other. And right now, we're not going to worry about these pauses because if these are separate areas, so Professor Brown, when she's editing, if she needs a little bit of a pause there, or this way, this will help her know when the next section is. Okay, so this might be my intro narration, this might be one in the middle, and this might be one in the end. If I have a little space in there, it's going to help her find where to go. So we're just going to leave those in there. So when you're ready to export again, now remember, if your audio looks like this, you have only selected some of your audio. And so you want to make sure that all of your audio is exported. So just draw a little box around it. Remember, use your select tool for that. And then go to File, go to Export, go to Multi-Track Mixdown. And in this case, we can go to entire session because there's no other audio in our multi-tracks. It's going to mess us up. I have all my audio on that first track. But often we do have other audio that we're not using, that we have on mute, for instance, on other tracks. And so, when that happens, you're better off doing the selected clips. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the selected clips. And just make sure you know where you're saving it. I'm saving it in my documents. Actually, in this case, that's fine. That's easy enough to find. Just make sure you know what the name is. To keep track of multiple versions, you can even put the date in there or the time. That way you remember what's the latest version or the best version. I only have one version of this, so I'm just going to call it what I have here, Tracking Show 2, JPL. And so Professor Brown will know that this is my portion of the tracking, okay? And all the other settings are fine. We want it to be a waveform. It's going to be a higher quality audio if we leave it in wave. And then we're going to hit OK, and it's going to export it to my documents. All right, well, I hope that was helpful. Please let us know if you have any questions. There will be an advanced audition editing tutorial soon that I believe Professor Brown will put together, but if not, we'll work on making sure that happens, okay? I hope that was helpful. Bye.